I think that what the ex-president just said is a further indication of his cognitive degeneration. You saw recently when he was talking about whether he chose electrocution or being eaten by sharks. Something's very wrong there. And indicative in it also is diminishing the power of the press, which is the guardian of our freedom in our country. So I think people who might thinking about voting for him have to know that he can't last as president for 4 years with his brain deteriorating at the rate that it is, and is clearly evident.
The countdown is certainly on now.
And look, it's all about Pennsylvania. This is shaping up to be the key swing state that will decide who becomes the next president of the United States. Kamala Harris has spent all her events in Pennsylvania. Donald Trump, however, he went to North Carolina first, and it's there he was talking about tariffs. It's a favourite of Donald Trump. He's promising tariffs, and he says it's going to stimulate the economy. Of course, there's a mix of opinions on that, but we know the economy is a big driver for voters in this election. What he said is he's going to level tariffs at Mexico on day one, and he's going to tie that to the number of people crossing illegally at the US-Mexico border.
If they don't stop this onslaught of criminals and drugs coming into our country, I'm going to immediately impose a 25% tariff on everything they send in.
Over the past 4 years, Kamala has orchestrated the most egregious betrayal that any leader in American history has ever inflicted upon our people.
And of course, if Donald Trump wins, Australia does have a free trade agreement with the US, but we're not immune to any tariffs ourselves. So this is going to be a big factor to watch over the coming weeks, months, if Donald Trump is successful. But there's no guarantee that Donald Trump's getting over the line. The polls are very tight. And in fact, Kamala Harris has been pulling ahead in some key places, including, quite surprisingly, in Iowa, of all places. Now, that might too be tariff connected for all those farmers who are worried about tariffs affecting their exports. But at the same time, what we're seeing is Kamala Harris putting in a very busy few last weeks. The last few days have been no exception. She's been out at multiple events before her major event in Philadelphia this evening.
So, Pennsylvania, I'm here to ask for your vote. I'm here to ask for your vote. Pennsylvania, the race is not yet over. Okay, we got a lot of work to do, and we have got to finish strong. And make no mistake, we will win. We will.
While we're talking about how tight these polls are, what I want to say again before we start getting the results tomorrow is a tight result in a swing state will ultimately give whoever wins all of the state's electoral college votes. So we can have even just a few thousand votes decide in this country of over 300 million people who will be the next president of the United States. But that may well end up being a big margin in the electoral college. So that's a big part of the analysis we're going to be doing tomorrow. It's also a big part of why there's concern that there will be some kind of conflict after the election result, and especially if it takes a while for us to get a result. The thing is, 2024 is very different from 2020. Many of the people involved in the January 6th riot at the Capitol have been charged and convicted. Over 900 people have been sentenced to some kind of jail time. If you're not one of those supporters who's already in jail, you're probably looking at the situation and thinking there's not much in it for you to try and do the same thing again. The BLM riots aren't happening. The George Floyd element just simply isn't there this time. And when we're talking about the pro-Palestine protests, there's any chance that could happen as well, but there's certainly nothing significantly on the radar here. We are seeing local law enforcement very prepared. The fences have been going up and they've been quite specific, saying that that's a deterrent factor. Small businesses have been putting boards up. For many of them, that's an insurance decision. If they don't get it up and something happens, they probably can't claim. Not something you want to waste your time on. So I know there's been a lot of speculation about this. I would say for now, there's really not any kind of instance that I would say we have to be ready for something like this in DC beyond just always being ready. And it's more likely that there'd be something locally based at a polling booth like what we saw in Arizona in 2020, or a lone wolf kind of incident, which is always a risk in America, a country with hundreds of millions of guns. So as we get into this final 24 hours, it is notable just how tight it is. Here's Mick Mulvaney, former chief of staff to the White House, saying that he does see just how tight this race is and how this could be a cause for conflict.
There have been a couple of races where the Republican has won the Electoral College and lost the popular election. People say those are close elections. Donald Trump won easily in the Electoral College in 2016, lost the national popular vote. But yes, it just feels like it's very, very close because the country feels very divided. Walk down an ordinary street in this country and half the folks are going to be for Trump and half the people are going to be against him. And I think that's going to carry through on Tuesday night.
So tomorrow we'll potentially find out if we're going to have the first female president of the United States or the first president to win a non-consecutive term since Grover Cleveland after surviving 2 assassination attempts, and how many lawsuits. It really will be one for the history books no matter what happens tomorrow evening.